Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Dierks Bentley called Black. You know, more often than not, I feel that Dierks Bentley doesn't get the appreciation that he probably deserves. Now, I'll admit that's a loaded statement, especially if all you know him for are his singles, most of which he himself would throw under the bus. Because even though I was late to getting on board with Dierks Bentley, he's had a surprisingly interesting career, starting off in the mid-2000s with some reasonably well-received albums before making a hard left turn to crank out a bluegrass project. And while he's pivoted back to release albums like Home and Riser in the past couple of years, he's always stood out a bit from the pack. Sure, he's had his party songs or his proto-bro country songs, but you delve into his albums and you'll find a smarter, more inventive and imaginative songwriter, and one that doesn't need to cater to trends to crank out the hits. And even when he does, he tends to do it better. As much as Drunk on a Plane is far from his best work, there's still something about the detail in the writing and the loaded bitterness of his delivery that adds bite to it. It makes the song stand out. And again, that's him at his worst. At his best, there's a subtle sort of emotive charisma to his voice that makes songs like the tribute to his late father and his Crisis of Faith on Here on Earth some of the most powerful work you will hear in modern mainstream country. And one of my top songs of 2014, hands down. God, I love that track. As such, going into Black, I was prepared to give Dierks Bentley a lot of credit. Sure, Somewhere on a Beach was a sort of leering douchebaggery that's kind of hard to stomach, even if he himself had slagged the song as one he didn't write and not at all representative of the album, which is more of a concept album exploring complicated relationships. And given how true that was about his last album, Riser, and its singles, and how Dierks Bentley has a reputation for working with the right people, I mean, he brought on Maren and Elle King on board for this album, that's always a positive sign, I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I dug into Black. Was it worth it? Well, if I was giving Dierks Bentley the benefit of the doubt, he sure as hell tested me with Black because, by the nine hells, this was a frustrating listen. With a good underlying concept and even some of the production in order to execute it, but nowhere near cohesive enough lyrically or instrumentally to properly stick the landing here. And if Dierks Bentley was less of a compelling performer or imaginative writer, this record would have tilted into mediocrity very fast. As it is decent, but man alive, it should have been a lot better. Because here's the thing, I really do like Dierks Bentley as a singer. His voice has a natural raspy texture that's capable of huge power and yet subtle nuance that most country performers cannot balance as well. He's got the versatility to play into songs with a complex emotional dynamic and play them with real sincerity and real rugged flavor. And what you need when you have a voice like his is the production that gives it space to breathe, or at least accentuates his presence. And thus it was a little bit alarming that the first thing you needed to get right on an album like this is not consistent. Sure, for the first 3 songs he's got the space he needs, but starting off with What the Hell Did I Say, you start getting the impression he's not really getting the swell or volume, not helped by an odd hollowness in his multi-tracking and vocal production like on Somewhere on a Beach or Roses in a Time Machine. But by far the worst case is Mardi Gras, which runs away with being one of the worst Dierks Bentley songs ever written for a number of reasons, one of the most noticeable being the demo quality of the vocal pickup. There's no body to his vocals here. Granted, that's far from the only problem with that song, so let's dig into the instrumentation and production. Now, I gave Dierks Bentley something of a pass with Riser because despite his usage of spacier synth effects or even drum machines, he's got a knack for melody and a windswept sort of production that kept the groove and flow going. And I'm not going to say that the same doesn't mostly apply here as well, but you can definitely tell that the balance in the mix is tilting towards thicker, heavier percussion, and that's not always a good sign. Again, the album starts off pretty strong. The title track has a surprising amount of liquid guitar melody and piano accents to balance against the waves of deeper drums, and while tracks like What the Hell Did I Say, Freedom, All the Way to Me, and Light It Up, they press the guitars through a few too many effects, there's still a foundational melody and flow to these songs, even if I do think the banjo tone he uses is a little bit too shrill and underweight. But what's always bothered me about the introduction of sharper drum machines into the mix and getting more prominence is that it chops up the groove, and that definitely starts to happen here. When they've kept a little bit more gentle or faded, like on Pickup or the pretty damn excellent album standout I'll Be the Moon singing opposite Maren, I can mostly ignore them, especially as they often fade into real drums. But even though I like the ragged guitar tone of Somewhere on a Beach, that sandy pop and hand clap, it defines the flow of the song. It becomes even more prominent on the piano ballad Why Do I Feel, or the choppy faded pop of Different for Girls, at least in the verses where the guitars and banjos are faded fragments against the deeper crack and skitter of the beat. But even there, it can kind of work through a little bit more melody holding the pieces together. But the worst example of this is, surprise, the garish sleaze of Mardi Gras. With Trombone, Shorty, Shorty blaring over the track with a full horn section that pulls into a bass-heavy stagger with the ugly guitar tones that seem to be trying for swampy New Orleans vaudeville. Something that's so artificial and over the top that doesn't remotely fit with Dierks Bentley's woozy attempt at sincerity. The track sticks out like a sore thumb, and when you compare it to the bassy tones and extended guitar solo that holds together the closing track Can't Be Replaced, you realize that Mardi Gras should never have been on this album. But then again, that's a question that should have been raised about significant chunks of this album, which ties into our lyrics and themes. Now, let me stress again, I like Dierks Bentley's thematic conceit of exploring the growth and maturity of a man that develops through complicated relationships. His emotional maturity and willingness to explore that nuance has always been a strong point for him, along with the detail that tends to flesh out his writing and makes it stand out. Hell, it's one of the reasons I'm more willing than most to give a pass to tracks like Somewhere on a Beach. It's a bitter and obnoxious kiss-off track that bites a little bit too hard from the same formula that worked on Drunk on a Plane, but it's supposed to be kind of obnoxious, and it probably succeeds a little bit too well. But if you look at this album's progression thematically, man, it's thin. Mostly because this record doesn't take the same sort of chances at vulnerability that made the best songs on Riser work. The best song on this album is the complicated emotional dynamic on I'll Be the Moon, where Dierks Bentley's playing the other guy to Maren Morris's current relationship, and while he doesn't like being in that role, he's willing to play that position if she just wants to keep it a secret and won't end things in her current situation, even if it is completely the wrong choice. And the dying relationship of Why Do I Feel shows his own insecurities working against him as he struggles to break things off or just keep trying. Hell, even though Different Girls of Elle King is incredibly ham-fisted and probably unintentionally plays into broader gender stereotypes, I can respect the good heart behind the intentions. Part of maturity is taking other points of view into consideration. I respect what he was trying to do, but surrounding these songs are two other types of tracks. Tracks that are going for a broad, oddly comic sensibility, and those that are too broadly sketched to really fit in thematically at all. And it's hard to tell what hurts this album more. Mostly because I'm not a fan of Dierks Bentley's comic timing or delivery. He's way too serious to properly sell these jokes all that well, and they're not that good jokes. Even if songs like What the Hell Did I Say or Rose in a Time Machine on paper do kind of work thematically. I think the larger issue comes with tracks like Freedom or Pickup or All the Way to Me or parts of Can't Be Replaced. I don't doubt the sincerity, but they don't really reflect the thematic arc, and with the arsenal of brand names in each song piled in, they feel a little bit too much like the checklist bro country tracks that Dierks Bentley usually rose above. And thus by the time we get to the emotional maturity at the album's end, yeah, I guess I can buy it, Dierks Bentley can sell it, but I'm not hearing the progression or struggle to get there thematically, especially when the bad decisions are played more for broad comedy, or when Mardi Gras plays way too close to the end of the album. I don't feel the struggle to get to the end point, and really the ending goal feels a little bit lacking in weight. And look, on some level, I feel I'm being way too hard on this album, but it's more because I expect Dierks Bentley to deliver more here. He's got one of my favorite voices in mainstream country, and he's at least trying to aim higher on a conceptual level. And hell, I can even appreciate him being one of the few who can blend in modern percussion with spacious tones that's still recognizably country. But despite all the lyrical detail, the emotional stakes of this album are frustratingly broad and vague, which to me might indicate the label meddling for an easier product for the mainstream to digest. Something which I've always thought is completely asinine, because the country songs that tend to be remembered are those that have iconic detail in the writing and the sound. And without the killer standouts like Here on Earth or Damn These Dreams off a Riser, yeah, for me it's an extremely strong 6 out of 10 and a recommendation, but more if you're a Dierks Bentley fan looking to see where he's going next. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but he's definitely done better. If you're curious, it's worth a listen, but otherwise, you could probably skip it and you wouldn't be missing much. Sorry. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Yes, I've got the poll up here, so if you guys, what do you guys think about this album? Do you think it really connected for Dierks Bentley? Because I honestly think he's done better than this. It didn't really connect for me at all, especially considering the concept that he was going for. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I'll be more than happy to give them a listen. Pretty much throughout the majority of this week, I'm going to be covering a lot of country music, so if you're a fan of that, stay tuned, there's a lot more on the way. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.